Okay, well, let's get going. Hello and welcome. Thanks for joining today. I'm Justin Schweiger, Director of Customer Success at Manufacton, and I'm happy to welcome you to our discussion on prefab transformation and visibility, leveraging technology to win more work. I'm joined here by the senior team from Collins Electrical Company. Today, we'll listen in on a conversation that our speakers had about how prefab fits into their business and how it changed their processes. They'll also give tips on what they found in the success of their prefab work, the technology that enabled this success, and how prefab enhanced their lean transformation. So throughout the session, please send any questions you have via the chat function. Send them to me, and we'll answer those at the end with our live Q&A session at the end. At the end, we'll provide contact info if we don't get to all your questions or if you have additional follow-up questions. And we'll also send out the recording of the webinar afterward. So let's jump into the conversation. And at the end, we'll come back to the panelists and answer your questions. All right, well, welcome to our webinar. This is about prefab transformation and visibility and how we're leveraging technology to win more work. I'm excited to introduce four incredible people at Collins Electrical Company out in California who've put in the hard work of transforming their electrical contracting business to do more prefabrication and streamline processes in order to increase profitability and win more work. So in this discussion, we have Brian Ginny, co-CEO at Collins, Elizabeth Anderson, VDC and BIM manager, Larry Nelson, the prefab shop manager, and Jay Neiman, the pre-construction manager. And I'm Justin Schweiger, Director of Customer Success at Manufacton. And we're a cloud-based software platform that helps you manage your offsite production work and give all your teams real-time visibility into your entire prefab planning, manufacturing, and installation operations. So let's jump into it. Brian, we'll start with you as the strategic leader at Collins and thinking about prefab sort of holistically. How were you doing things before you started doing prefab? And really, what was the impetus to take it to the next level?
Early on, we started our prefab journey, probably one of the earlier adopters about 22 years ago, and how we were doing business. Before prefab was the traditional, give the foreman a packet of material, a set of drawings, and he just goes out, or she just goes out, and they build a project for us. We learned over a short period of time through peer groups and national relationships with other electrical contractors that we don't compete with, that there's other ways of doing business. And through a peer group, we collectively researched, what are some of those better opportunities out there to increase productivity and really grow and develop a group of people that would be with us for a long time and understood our culture. So companies out of Las Vegas opened their doors to us and showed us what they were doing. About 20 years ago, we started adopting some of those concepts and really trying to get that whole new way of thinking through our organization and through the unions that are our partners within our locales as well. So it was a pretty quick transition, but the heavy lifting we didn't see was going up the road, and then the technology really helped us out as well. So it's been a long evolution, and we're still evolving and have to continue to change in this regard.
Great. And how much prefab are you all doing now?
Well, right now, we're just closing our books for the year, and I believe we just completed about 550,000 man hours in the field. And I want to say that we were about 4.5% of those hours were done through the prefab shop. There's a lot of stories behind the scenes on that, but it's representing about 4.5%. In our lean journey, that is our current state. Our future state, our goal is to get it up to 12%. And now that we have some platforms that we're going to talk about, we think that we can get to that point.
Great, that's great backstory, great context for the rest of the conversation. So we'll dive into really how this transformation process happened next. So what drove your decisions on what to prefab and how to prefab it?
I think we started with the low-hanging fruit. What I mean by that is, we're doing boxes, 4 square boxes, 4 and 11 boxes. So we standardized on the size box. We had to standardize, and we learned that over time of what we should be doing, so we're not buying multiple different manufacturers, multiple sizes, et cetera. So we did start cataloging those things, really started bringing our foreman in and really teaching them some of the ground rules of prefab and our expectations and how we detail and what our internal nomenclature is about. I think we went through about 110 foremen over 5 sessions of training, maybe about 2 years ago. So that was really the catalyst that really helped us to speak the language with each other. But then we started getting different ideas, and we put a team to go together, which we call the scrub team. And the scrub team takes every new job that we have and says, where's the low-hanging fruit here? Where can we offer value engineering back to our customers? If they didn't have MC cable, they didn't have, open tray above ceilings, those type of things, and really brought our customers in to help save them money and help us be more productive and efficient in the field. So there's nothing off the table. You can do prefab on traffic signal lighting. You can do prefab on wastewater treatment plants. I mean, everything has the ability to have some prefab components in it. So there's really no parameters to what we're doing right now. There are some things that we're doing day to day, and those are primarily boxes and MC cutting.
But what's made us effective in those areas is finding the standard bills that we can use in all the different areas. And we took those standard operations and took them to different areas like Brian was talking about, no matter where it is. We look for the commonalities and we use those in all those different areas.
Yeah, add to that, our starting point was, what do we do a lot of? We do a lot of MC cable, we do a lot of boxes. Let's start there. So the things we did a whole lot of just in general is where we started our prefab efforts, and we've evolved since then. You get better, you get more efficient with those things, and you realize, well, now we can do electrical rooms, we can do our underground, we can so on, conduits in the walls. So it all started at the box and MC cable, really.
And I want to just elaborate on one thing, one specific story that we're doing solar project, canopy solar projects up and down California from Mexico border all the way up to Oregon. And we took that management team. We said, we're getting different people every time we go into a different jurisdiction, people that don't know how to do this, don't know how to do that. And it's just new to them because they hadn't done it. And so what we did is brought this group together and kind of a think tank of ideas, a step by step. How can we do this better? Through that process, we really literally turned it into a plug and play system and a very highly productive system. And if I had to guess, I'd say we were able to reduce labor 35 to 40%, but it gave us the ability to expand that department. Whereas we were doing maybe 50,000 man hours a year 5 years ago, we're now doing about 200,000 man hours up and down the state. So we're not taking jobs away. It's just giving us the ability to flatten the baseline and do things a lot more productively.
And Brian, how do you incentivize doing more prefab with all your teams?
Well, I don't know that we have a specific incentive for prefab. We do, as a contractor, have an incentive for every one of our foremen that run a project 500 hours or above, that they get every hour that they save on that project. And there are certain parameters that we put in place that they have to still comply with safety, comply with all those different things, and have to have a specific recipe of training, OSHA 30, first aid, all the training that we require. They have to have that current, but they do get a dollar amount per hour for that. And a lot of them are putting 2 and 2 together and realizing that, hey, the more hours we can put over in prefab, the more productive I am, and the more we're going to save hours on the job. So that is really kind of the overall incentive. And Larry's from that world.
Yeah, and what incentivized me when I was a foreman out in the field before I took over the prefabrication department was that, these jobs are getting shorter and shorter. The durations that it used to take us this long, and now they want it done in this period of time. So for me, it was about meeting schedules, and the more I use prefab, that I'm able to meet these deadlines and these dates that they're continually getting shorter on me. And it also keeps my labor costs down. We might be using the same amount of man hours, but our labor costs in the prefab shop are obviously lower. So as a foreman out in the field, I see my total overall job cost being lowered. So that was kind of some incentive for me to use prefab.
Great. That's super interesting. So as you got into more prefab, obviously there's a technology component here. What was your technology search process like, and what were you looking for and why?
Well, initially when we started on our lean journey 2 years ago, the reason we started looking for a new platform for our sharing and have a visibility of what we were doing in prefab and what every project was working on was because we didn't have one, to be quite honest. It was material orders were either printed on a piece of paper, written, emailed, dropped off on the desk of the purchasing manager. The same with our prefab orders. They were, again, same method of delivery. It was, oh, let me set it over here. Hopefully they find it. Whether or not it was delivered or prefabricated, it was whether or not the paper fell off the corkboard and the, thumbtack was working or not. So it just caused a lot of questions constantly, a lot of confusion with the field, confusion with our office staff, confusion with the prefab shop manager. And so when we were seeking a platform, which is what led us to Manufacton, was where can we store all of our documents, all of our drawings, our prefab orders and material orders all in one place that would allow for our field to go on there and look and say, hey, where's my prefab at? Where's it? Has it been delivered? I've had foremen who've called and asked me for prefab, and I say, hey, it's kind of our go-to. Did you check Manufacton? We're having to retrain our people, but I'll tell him, well, did you look at Manufacton? And then sure enough, he's like, no, I didn't. He'll go look at Manufacton and it says his items have been delivered on his job site. So it's really just allowed for open lines of communication where no one's wondering, where is their prefab? Where's my material? Have we even done our job in the design department? And it just, even project managers, owners, branch managers, all can go look at Manufacton, and it's really created a one-stop shop, for lack of a better term, of where is our productivity for different prefab items and even design.
Just the analogy or just the vision that comes to my mind is that we're having a problem with from one group of people or one person to the next person is when they close the gate, the other one's opening the gate. So that work was not flowing. Mm-hmm. And now we have through Manufacton triggers that if you're on a specific job and you're a foreman, you're looking for your material, you have the visibility. So instead of Larry receiving 20 phone calls a day, mm-hmm. it's moving these people to Manufacton. They look, they see job specific, 4th floor lighting, blah, blah, blah. It's right there and it shows them where it's at in queue. If it's on the delivery truck or if it's still in design, wherever it is, but everything is date sensitive as our world is. And that's what we're shooting for, those dates. So now Larry's not sitting there trying to say, okay, what do I got next week? He's got a 3-week view based upon all those tickets that are in Manufacton coming at him. And he can facilitate by putting in the right manpower. I mean, everybody that does prefab is going to tell the same story. You got highs and lows. All of a sudden you need 20 guys next week and you have not enough work, but for 5 guys the following week. And what this has been able to do is give him the ability to see visually upstream what's coming at him in terms of orders and what type of manpower he's going to need. And absolutely, this has helped us flatten those highs and lows and maintain a consistent shop. So that's one star for sure that we don't talk about them a lot, but I've walked in the fab shop and there's 2 guys out there one day and 20 the next day. Doesn't happen that way anymore. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Well, you guys have mentioned lean a couple of times. It's about a buzzword in the industry. A lot of electrical contractors are also going through their own lean transformations. What's your perspective on lean?
Well, I'm the talking head here, so I'm going to look to others.
Well, I can say one thing on it. So when I saw the question, I said, so, I mean, I could boil it down pretty simple, and it's finding the root cause of a problem and fixing it so that it doesn't happen again. Instead of continually putting Band-Aids on all these small problems that we face daily, we can take 5 minutes and hey, we need to do this, and hey, we need to do that. But are we putting in systems so that those problems don't continue to happen? So lean for me is constant improvement. That's the basis of lean. So like I said, the biggest thing is finding the root cause of the problem. Why did it happen? We go back, it's one of the tools we use in lean. We go back and we find the root cause, we fix the root cause so that it just doesn't continue to bear its ugly head.
Mm-hmm. Which was another reason why we kind of sat out on this journey to seek a new technology platform. Was we identified there was a huge problem in our communication and in our triggers, as Brian mentioned, there was none. It was just kind of whoever decided to say something, maybe, and whoever was receiving that information. So one of the biggest problems that we did solve through lean was having that common platform of communication that we found through Manufacton.
There's a lot of heavy lifting with lean and a lot of heavy lifting, but our goal was to make the company better and to continue to make the company better. Manufacton is an absolute incredible tool for us from a visibility, from a communication, from a quality control. It handles a lot of those things that normally are out of control in this business.
Great.
I agree.
Well, that's, yeah, great context there on how you guys considered your transformation process as you started to implement more and more prefab. So let's talk more about the current state today. What is the most important thing to make prefab work today at Collins?
Do you want to touch on that first?
I think collaboration is huge with that. Ever since we started, we've got a lot of smart people in this company, and what we were not good with early on is asking everybody to continue to give their input and do all of that. We've gotten a lot better at that, but the communication is huge when it comes to making prefab work. Having the right people in the right spots, knowing that I can't ask Larry to do every single thing, and giving him the help that he needs to get things done is very, very important for us in general.
Another item that I don't want to say it's new because it's not brand new, but it's new to the construction industry is obviously, the BIM BDC world. Almost every one of our projects comes through design and requires us to have, an element of building information modeling. BDC is virtual design and construction, for those of you who do not know, but it's basically we're going to build that building on our computers before we do it in the dirt. And so a lot of the items that we do include in our models allows us to push that work to Larry in his shop, such as like overhead conduit racks. If we weren't taking the time to model them and go through the coordination effort, then we wouldn't be able to prefabricate those. And there's a lot of instances where if we hadn't done any of the BIM BDC work, we would have been in a real pinch in the field trying to install a lot of overhead conduit. Sometimes those ceilings just get way too crowded and there's not room to think about it on site. You've got to pre-plan. So, and then that's also a big chunk of work that could be an incentive to the foreman. That hours to bend the conduit out in the field, take the measurements, that would take way too long, and we just don't have it anymore, as Larry mentioned, on our projects. So that's been a tool that Collins has leveraged. Probably, I would say, maybe the last 10 years, almost 80% of our projects, and then the last 5 years, probably 95% of our projects are going through design and BIM, which it helps our foreman. I get phone calls daily. Everyone in our department does, from our foreman. They're asking questions on site about the models, about what's happening with prefab. Does this work? So it's become a tool that our whole company uses to leverage more efficient construction and really to eliminate issues in the field.
And I think one of the other key things in making prefab work is as you said, communication and understanding with our foreman. We do a lot of different things. And we have a lot of foremen in a lot of places. So they're not always seeing the new things that we're doing. So it's key that we keep that communication forward and keep as we come up with new ideas and we continue to make new prefab strides, that we keep getting that information to our foreman so that we can use it on all our projects.
Mm-hmm.
And we spend a lot of time with our foreman. It's a difficult task to bring a foreman in and say, hey, this is how we're going to do business now. They've been doing it a certain way for 20 years, and now we're saying, hey, we want to switch it up. So it's been a big cultural change on our journey, not just a lean journey, but prefab journey. But now we're getting foremen in the field saying, look, where's my prefab? And these were guys 5 years ago that would say, I'm not going to use any prefab. There's an expectation out there that we're going to prefab their jobs. And those were from the hardliners. Mm-hmm. And part of that is because of what is happening overall in the industry, in all trades, is that there's just not the qualified manpower. There's just not the entry as there had been in years past of young people coming into the industry and training up. And there is such a loss of brain matter. The smart guys are retiring. So we're trying to work with all those components, and prefab has been a big piece to the puzzle to make it all work to man these projects. We've got a very large project, 3.5 million square foot building that we're doing, and it has to be built in 14 months. Pretty much a marvel of technology in this building. But, when you have 1,800 cord drops that is needed in the field, all the same length, on a box, hung on hung on a tray. Doesn't make sense to do all of that one by one in the field. Makes more sense to put a group of people together and make 1,800 of them and ship them out to the job site. So there are some of those type of tasks that don't take a lot of thinking, maybe planning, but not thinking about how am I going to build 1,800 of these. We've got that solution resolved. But what it also does for us, it gives us the ability to bring young people into the industry, learn how we're doing things this way. And it just, over time, it changes that culture naturally. So there's a lot of positives to what we're doing. There's still naysayers, there's still people throwing rocks at us, but it's given us the ability to grow. It's given us the ability to market our company in a manner that large general contractors on large fast track jobs are looking at us now where they may not have considered us in that category in the past.
Yeah, definitely get one thing that just, it popped in my head, and we've talked about this for quite some time now, is getting ahead of the job. You can't wait to start detailing. You don't have time to wait to start detailing. So getting in and starting the detailing as soon as you know you've got that job, the earlier you start, the better your outputs become. If our design team is forced to spend 2 days on something that should be 2 weeks, obviously the output is not going to be as good. And that translates to Larry in the prefab shop. His output is going to be whatever we give him. So getting out early and staying in front of the jobs is key for prefab to be successful.
Well, and frankly, for the job to be successful, you know, it all goes hand in hand.
Yeah, Brian, you mentioned the labor union earlier. Wanted to touch briefly on that, and you know, how have those conversations gone over the last 20 years with the labor union, and essentially how have you partnered with the union with prefab?
You know, I'm going to go with my recollection. I think every geographic area in the United States has different relations with their labor unions, and you know, we're in the valley, we're in the Central Valley, so we've got San Francisco to the west of us. Their thought process of prefab is very different than our thought process here in an ag-based economy in the Central Valley of California. But we understood that we're working with all those unions and all those different thought processes. And, you know, like I said, there's people that throw rocks at what we do, a lot of contractors that how we do it. But it's gotten less and less. They've realized that, you know, our non-union competition, they've been doing it for years. They're finding ways to do things differently than us and outsmarted us in many regards. But I think over time, you know, we had to drink the Kool-Aid first and really see what the data was telling us is if it's really benefiting us. And once we got over that hurdle, we literally, before we built our fab shop, built this office, and we spent millions of dollars doing this, but we brought in 6 or 7 business managers from different jurisdictions around us that we work within. And we told them, this was our dream. This is our dream to do this. And each one of them nodded, said, do it, do it. Now, several of them have come back over time and walked through the office and walked through what we're doing. And because of the hard work of these people and others, they walked through and they shook their head and said, I didn't think you guys were going to get here. Really didn't think you guys were going to get here. So it's all about partnering. They are our partners, no doubt about it, and getting them to sign off and truly understand and communicate with them what our intentions are. And they will see the proof in the pudding that we're picking up more work and gaining market share, those type of things. And I think we've been able to prove that to them.
One of the, if I could add to that briefly, one of the things that I like about it is supporting and growing the membership too as well. We bring in guys here that are, most of my people in my shop are fairly new to the industry. They don't know a lot about the electrical, and we bring them in here. We get them familiar with what we're doing. They learn parts and pieces, and they get to see some builds that they might not have seen right away out in the field. So I think by doing that early with these guys, we help that process along. So when they do hit the field, I mean, they're ready to go. They know a lot more than if they had just got hired and went straight out to the field. So I think we can be more productive, and we can support the whole union effort that way.
Good comment.
Yeah, true.
Great. All right, well, we're getting close to the end here. So let's talk a little bit about the future. So if you could say, what do you guys think of the future of electrical prefab is? What do you guys think is coming next?
Well, we've attended a couple of different modularization conferences back in the Midwest pre-COVID. And there's no doubt that it's already happening in certain areas about bringing the MEP contractors together and putting a centralized prefabrication shop there. You can't do that for everything, But there are concepts that are actually becoming more practical than just conceptual that's happening. I think at certain projects makes sense. I think a little bit more automation. Technology is really leveraging construction. So the autonomous, if that's a term, the combination of human and machine putting these things together. I see that a little bit in the future. When you start talking like that, people say, "Well, you're gonna decimate the manpower that you need on jobs." The 20-22 years that we have been doing this, all we've seen is our overall man hours go up and up and up and up. From probably when we started 150,000 man hours a year, and we're averaging about 550,000 man hours a year. So that kind of data we can use when we have people saying, "Hey, you're taking away our jobs." No, we're just really expanding more than anything else and being able to do more with more. But I really think, our goal here is to double, triple how much we're doing through the prefab shop so we can control our jobs. I don't know that that's the answer as far as, a 10-year, 20-year, 30-year vision, but we are having some customers, general contractors that are setting up multiple trade fabrication shops in their facilities. What are your guys' thoughts?
We're currently working with one GC that is setting up, they're building the walls offsite, putting electrical, putting any mechanical that might be in there, any plumbing that's in there, and then shipping those walls to the site and standing them up. So all that's left is the overhead connections or some of the underground connections. So I think that's definitely where we're headed, especially with the speed at how jobs are being constructed now and the time that you're given. There's a lot of time spent offsite to get there. So I see that being kind of where we're going. A lot more time being spent offsite, which is either prefabrication, which is what Larry does for us, or modular systems as a team going through so that the jobs can be built. I mean, we've all seen the buildings that they put together that are just a bunch of Lego sets, right? And a 36-story high-rise getting built in 25 days or something crazy like that. So that's definitely where we're headed.
Yeah, we have offset a lot of our cost on the job and front loaded it in terms of planning. And we realize that the more that we plan, and you can over plan sometimes, but the more you plan, the better the job, the better control you're going to have of the job.
I agree.
Great. Well, that's a great thought to end on. I've asked a ton of questions today, so at this point, I'll turn it over to the audience for some audience Q&A.
Good.
Great. Well, and thanks for sending in your questions. If you guys have more, please keep sending them. So Colin's team, a couple questions for you. So is it necessary to have a dedicated prefab shop to start prefabbing for projects?
I believe it is. Yeah, definitely. We got to have space to make that happen. If we were kind of intermingling with our warehouse area, it can get a little congested. So, having the prefab shop set up for different types of prefab that we do makes us very efficient at it, and we're able to flow stuff through the shop at kind of a predetermined rate. So I would definitely agree.
To add with what Larry says is maybe it's not necessary, but it's definitely beneficial to have a shop where it's controlled environment. But 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we would set up, if you have a big warehouse job, you can set up on the job site if you have space and start prefab with your guys on the job site as well. Obviously having a shop is more efficient, but the efficiencies you gain by prefabbing anything is going to be more efficient than piece by piece building.
Agree.
And we are still doing fabrication or prefab in the field. There are certain things that don't make sense to bring lighting fixtures in here and those type of things, break them down. So we do have space on the job sites. We do still do traditional prefab on the job. The hours that I mentioned earlier were just the hours that were coming through our prefab shop, but there is a lot of prefab that still happens on the job sites.
Excellent. Great. Okay. Next question is regarding BIM. When are prefabs modeled and detailed, and when are they not?
Typically right now, we kind of have a standard where before, I would say 8 years ago, we only modeled overhead items because that was typically where most of the conflicts would come in the ceiling spaces with other trades, large duct and whatnot. But probably I would say in the last 2 to 3 years, we pretty much model everything because we schedule it through our model to prefab. So we don't have to model it in order to do prefab, but we just have realized that it's so much quicker to be able to have the model and then be able to create schedules through our modeling software, which is Revit. But there's a lot of items that maybe our field foremen call in and they'll say, hey, I need to get this prefabbed. It's something that maybe changed on the field or they didn't realize it was going to be needed. So that wasn't modeled, of course. And then there's times when they say, hey, can I put this in? And then we do have to model it to check to make sure it's not going to cause a conflict with other trades. So it's kind of like, you know, we don't have to model it and have it in our BIM, but most 95% of what we send to prefab is in our model because it's just our standard. We learned a while ago that I would say probably 3 to 5 years ago, we started learning the more we put in our model, the better off we are in the field for construction. And that's with our slab on grade sub-ups are in the model now, our in-wall assemblies are in the model, data subs that go from an assembly in the wall up to the open ceiling space. Those are in our model because quite frankly, we really don't want any surprises out in the field. We want to make sure we can put it in where we've designed it and where we want it for our best installation practices. And then, like I said, it makes it so much easier scheduling materials and sending our prefab production cards to Larry.
We're doing more and more deep underground also.
Yep. Yeah.
A lot more deep underground, if you would talk on that.
That's true. When I first started doing modeling for our projects, we never put anything in the dirt. Anything that was in the dirt was never considered coordination effort. And that was industry wide. There was no trade modeling underground. And then it became, you know, I think when the benefits of including all these items, whether it's deep underground, slab on grade, in-wall assemblies, overhead, roof conduit, even conduit placed on the roof that's surface mounted, we model those. We model our junction boxes, we model our pool cans. Everyone began to see, and that's including from the owners of projects, even architects, and we get the design team, you know, the engineers on these calls, they start realizing the benefit of including basically everything that's going to be installed, we model it because we just can avoid a lot of issues that happen. And sometimes those issues aren't necessarily inter-trade issues. Sometimes those issues have to do with, you know, building design that was, maybe there was a faulty design in the actual architecture of the building that no one would have seen if it wasn't modeled. So it's just become a tool that industry-wide, everyone is really relying on those BIM and VDC efforts up front to make sure that the building is fully constructible and to eliminate all those issues before we ever get going out in the field.
And, you know, just to add on that real quickly, I think we're a huge asset to a lot of our general contractors in the field. Before I came in to got over the prefab shop, I was out in the field for 20 plus years. And I had the model many times where I've seen problems that were going to happen out in the field. And I've taken it to the GC, or I've taken it to some of the other subs on the job and say, hey, I see this issue coming down the road here. And we were able to prevent a problem for the overall job. So it's a benefit in that way too. And I think they really appreciate that.
Well, one of the big ones is weight loads. Because, you know, where the design shows that we're going overhead with big feeders and so forth. And we put a model in front of the architects and the structural engineers and they say, well, we're not designed to take on that kind of weight load. So it early on, instead of preventing the job from moving forward, we're working on the backside to show different options to the owners and the designers. So that's been a big fix in terms of early warning signs.
Yep.
Great. Okay, similar question related to your software. So what is your complete set of software you use to manage prefab, like sort of start to finish? You mentioned Revit, you mentioned Manufacton. Are there other software platforms you use?
Currently, the majority of what we use is our Revit outputs and then entering those into Manufacton. We do have some AutoCAD stuff that we do, and we'll use Excel at times.
Navisworks Manage is the platform that we use for viewing the coordinated models. It's pretty much an industry standard. Everyone uses Navisworks. That's the coordinated model. When I say that is all the trades combined, you know, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire sprinkler. And then of course we have the building involved in there, the structure. When I say structure, I mean structural steel. So we use Navisworks Manage to view coordinated models and any clashes that we might have. Typical Microsoft software. I mean, we use a lot of Bluebeam, which is our PDF kind of viewing and markup tool. PlanGrid. We use PlanGrid to manage our documents for the project.
What are our guys using on their iPads that they can actually view the models?
They're using the Navisworks Freedom. Basically it's a free download that Autodesk provides. They can view it. They can do some kind of minor measurements, but it's really just a viewing platform. It's kind of the little brother to Navisworks manages more of the heftier kind of lift of the software for coordination models.
One of the big issues that we've had over the last couple of years and gotten through it is coming up with a software that was accepting all of this coming out of our design department to where they can view it in the field. I don't know that we have a foreman still, maybe a handful out of 110, 120 that aren't using an iPad. They're all using iPads for their drawings. The simplicity of when things change and things change quickly, daily, that they can have that updated model, that updated shop drawing or what have you, has been huge, a huge reduction of time. Just everything's gone electronic. So obviously software becomes a significant issue. And then that's why we started looking for a mod or a software platform that we can utilize for the fab shop to communicate that information. That's where Manufacton comes in, that they can pull all that information up right on their iPad, on their phone or what have you.
Okay, great. Next question is about your design. So Larry, you'd mentioned the fact that you're trying to standardize what you're purchasing, standardize what you're prefabbing. Are you taking the designs and specifications as is and then determining what to prefab? Or are you proposing substitutions in the electrical systems or components that you have a better ability to prefab?
Absolutely. We do both. We take our standard assemblies. A lot of times jobs will be asking for stuff that is, or we see some opportunities to change things that they're asking for. We have a book or what do you call it? A database of assemblies and different types of builds that we use. And at that point, we take it back. I talk to Jay or usually Jay, like I said, we get together before when we start a job, even early on before we've started the job, we get the foreman together, we get the design department together. We always get together, we look at the prints, the specs, and we come up with ideas and try to pull from our database to use stuff. And if we see design changes that are better ideas that we have, then we go back to the contractors. I mean,
yeah, and one thing we've done is what we've built, we do have a standard product that we like to use. Some jobs we're not able to use that, but what we built can be incorporated with many other manufacturers that whether it's Caddy or Rayco or Orbit or whatever. So we've done a lot of work to make sure that we're adaptable to that.
And earlier on, we were talking about value engineering and going back to the customer and saying, as you mentioned, substitutions. Look, if you allow us to use this method of installation, we can give you this back. And over time, people realize that that these new products that are on the market, new products for 25 years, they work. Because behind the wall, we don't care what it looks like behind the wall. So long as they turn the light switch on, it turns the lights on. There's not a lack of quality control. It's still products. It's still safe products. It's still code compliant. But everybody's looking to save money and save time. So it's kind of an easy sell that we're giving them some money back, but it facilitates us to be more productive on the job site and in the fab shop.
Great. Okay, next question is about shipping and logistics and scheduling those deliveries. How do you handle shipping and logistics from your prefab shop to your projects, especially projects that are further away from your facility?
We have a couple different ways that we do shipping. One of our main sources of shipping is what we call our vendor partners. We've partnered with several different suppliers, and we have agreements with them. If we buy certain parts and pieces, and they supply us on jobs that they will in turn send our prefab out to the jobs. And so that's probably one of our main sources of logistics. Now we do ship stuff all over California. So in some of those cases, our vendor partners will still hold to that, and they will ship our stuff through outside vendors and third-party shippers. And sometimes, we do have trucks available for certain types of builds that are a little more sensitive types of builds that we don't want any damage to happen to, or we need on time at specific times at job sites and that sort of thing. So there's a myriad of different ways that we ship stuff, but our vendor partners are our main source of shipping for us.
And Justin, I got to touch on this, and whoever's listening to, when we started talking about how much product we were going to be shipping out of our prefab shop, we said, wow, we're going to need a fleet of trucks to do this. And that was a big issue. So we literally went to our vendor partners, 2 or 3 local distributors here, and said, look, we have a problem. Can you guys come up with a solution? They did. They said, if we get a commitment from you that we're going to be providing all the commodity materials on this job, sometimes the lighting and the power package to put it all together, we will commit to delivering on all of these items on our loop trucks, which happen while we're sleeping. They're dropping product all over in this zone, 50 miles, 80 miles, depends on where it is, but they piggyback on their loop trucks to move it to our job site. And I think the commitment that we have now from our distributors are, we put the call in, they will have it to the job site within 48 hours.
That's 72, yes.
72 hours. We got to tell them lots of things. I've seen trucks, 24-foot trucks leave here with 30, prefab buggies, and they've got 2 loads going through, and it's a beautiful thing to work with partners and use those relationships to make the whole system work.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'm hearing more and more about partnerships every day with companies like yours. So next question is, in addition to the communication you mentioned with your foreman, can you share some tips on how to align employees who are resistant to change with a new prefab strategy?
I was really hoping you would tell us.
You know what? Honestly, the easiest way to solve resistance is having a good quality product come out of whether it's design or prefab, and then constant communication. If you can do that and you can give a good product to whoever it is, it will change the game. We have a couple of guys that are very seasoned foremen that always like to do it their own way. Well, this current project we're on right now, we have one of those guys that is now making that turn. It took some time, but is making that turn like, holy smokes, you guys are putting out good product. You're getting it to me in time. There's always the issues here and there, but that type of stuff will help a lot.
Well, and I think one of the biggest, influences or factors to help out with that is just one success. Kind of piggyback off what Jay said, is there's a good product, but especially when there's something that they've seen that has helped them greatly, they're going to keep going back. And then it's kind of going to be, spread like wildfire through our company anyways. Is it just takes 1 or 2 people to give a good recommendation and say, hey, check out this new software, or really start using PlanGrid, or look at Manufacton now. It's really helping my project. I'll never forget, probably I would say about maybe 12 years ago, I had a foreman who'd been working for Collins for, I think at the time, over 20 years. And I was trying to get him to let me email him a PDF. And he was like, nope, I will never use a PDF. It needs to be printed out. I need it in my hand. I'll never, ever look at a PDF. I said, okay, well, that's fine. And so he gave me a phone call, and he needed a dimension. It was urgent. He needed some help with something. And I said, okay, yeah. And he goes, well, how soon can the shop deliver it to me? I said, well, I can email you a PDF and you can have it right now. He goes, oh, okay, fine. Oh, he was, from that point on, he was sold. He only wanted PDFs. He just the quick turnaround was something that he needed right then. It was because he needed it and it helped him. He never went back. So I think that's probably been the biggest change factor for our company, is seeing the benefits of maybe new technology. And even, Manufacton, it took a while when we first adapted that. There was a lot of foremen who were like, I don't want to look in that Manufacton. I want to call. I can't talk to people anymore. And we said, of course you can call and talk to us, but this is a tool for you. It's not really a tool to make our job way easier, because we have a lot more input up front, but it helps keep things organized and scheduled. And we don't have to go and ask, 8 people in our department, hey, did someone send this to prefab? Or find out from Larry, did we give this to you? No, we can go look, just like the foreman can. And so, like Jay mentioned, there was one foreman, he was just digging his heels in. He did not want to go and look in Manufacton for his prefab. He wanted to call. And sure enough, it only took him about 5 or 6 times to be able to say, oh, wow, it took me 3 seconds. Pull up my phone, literally it's an app, check. Oh, okay, my stuff's on site. Well, I'm not even going to call. then it was on him to go and check his on-site deliveries. And so it's just been, I think, through word of mouth, being a couple successes. And then it just starts spreading and people get it under their, fires underneath them and think, hey, well, this is awesome. And then they want to start helping make it better. Well, we had a foreman meeting a couple weeks ago, and we had foremen who've been using Manufacton and, getting really involved in the coordination efforts and design. And then they're giving ideas. Well, I think we can add this and make it a little bit better. And as soon as that starts happening, then the real change is happening and the growth is happening and you start seeing the benefit.
Elizabeth did hit one thing that I didn't say, was letting them know that we're doing this for you. We're doing this to make it your job easier. That's important also.
And one more addition I want to put in there. There's a pretty strong group. And it's not going away. When we dig our heels in and say, we're doing this, the guys in the field, the resistors, they see that this is a change within the organization. Got strong, talented people here that are going to drive this. And these guys have put a lot of time and effort into making sure that this Manufacton fab design is benefiting our people in the field. And once they become believers, it goes a long way.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just takes a little training. I'll just take 1 second with that. Once you put it before them and, you do get some resistance if people don't know how to use stuff. So we've had to put a little bit of effort into making sure once you put the product in front of them that you take a little bit of time to show them how to use it. And it really doesn't take a lot of time to do it. You just got to get in front of them, have a little conversation with them, be a little personable and show them how to take a few steps. The next thing you know, they're better computer people than they thought.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that values-driven approach where you're implementing a new system, but really saying what's the value in the folks you're trying to get on board. I think that's a great approach, and I think that's a great way to wrap up the conversation today. We're getting to the end of our time, so really want to thank you all, the Collins Electric team, for being great panelists. Thank you for all the attendees. Just a reminder, we'll be sending out a recording of today's webinar to everyone who is on the sign-up list. And we will also be at NECA, or Manufacton will be at NECA. So please stop by, mention you were here. We'd be happy to see you. And in addition, on the screen, you'll see we have contact information for both Manufacton and Collins. If you have questions or comments, feel free to reach out and we'd be happy to continue the conversation. So thanks everyone, and we'll talk to you all again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks guys, have a good day.